Keeping with my word that I would review the Phantasm box set not only on the website but on the YouTube channel as well, I have decided to finally be a man of my word, bust out the box set, and go through each film individually. As you can see, for these reviews, I have decided to flip to the original artwork, which can be found on the reverse side of each cover of the Phantasm films in the box set. Starting off with 1979's Phantasm, directed by Don Coscarelli, starring A. Michael Baldwin, Billy Thornberry, Reggie Bannister, and Angus Scrimm, it tells the story of a boy named Michael, his brother Jody, and Reggie, who fight with an evil grave-robbing man known as the Tall Man. It's one of the actual most legit scary and frightening films that I can remember from my childhood. This was a video I rented at the video store when I was a kid, and it stuck with me for years after, so I was always looking for the DVDs, and I was really excited when I did finally come across it at a Walmart, no less, in the early 2000s after high school. The thing about Phantasm films is that they can be really confusing, but that is also a bit of the selling point for them. It helps add to the mood and atmosphere because you never are really too sure what is going on and what's going to happen next. The movie starts at a gravesite with the lady in lavender having sex with a man that we would soon learn is a friend of Mike and Jody's and Reggie's. She quickly and strangely turns to the Tall Man before she kills the guy, and then when we go to the funeral home is when the things really start to get creepy, as if that wasn't creepy enough. Mike witnesses the Tall Man doing some very strange things, tells Jody and tells Reggie, but they don't really seem to believe him much at first, until then finally when Jody, after an evening with the lady in lavender himself, figures out that things are not a hoax, Mike is not lying, and that there is something strange going on at the funeral home. Phantasm is full of very strange and weird stuff, most of which are pretty cool nonetheless. Like I said, things in Phantasm don't always make sense, but that's the point of it, and that's also the charm of it. The film packs a very strange and weird ending that'll make you jump. It'll stick with you, no matter if you're seeing it for the first time or if you have seen it and you're seeing it again multiple times. You could probably make a case for the original Phantasm still being perhaps the best of the Phantasm films, although for more current fans, it doesn't seem to be their cup of tea. If you'll notice, the original Phantasm on Blu-ray in this box set features what is mostly the same extras as the original 4K solo release from earlier in the year, although Welgo did toss on some new extras that you can pause and see for yourself. As you can see from the stills I'm including, the movie looks great, the best it's ever looked, and I think you won't be complaining about how this movie looks. When I first seen the original Phantasm, I was lucky enough to have seen it in the later part of the 80s, early 90s, so the sequels were actually already at my video store, so I could actually go and check and see what was going to happen following the first film. I can only imagine the frustration of people that sat there and watched the original one, and then had to wait nearly 10 years to get a sequel. This time, in 1988's Phantasm II, we have a continuation from the first film, but now with the input of Universal Studios, James LaGrosse is replacing Mike Baldwin as Mike. In the plot, Mike has been in a psychiatric hospital since the events of the first film, but hasn't been able to shake the memory of the Tall Man, and with pretty good reason, as we soon learn. So now, fresh out of the psych ward with Reggie at his side, and Reggie playing the more prominent Reggie role that we're more accustomed to seeing in these Phantasm films, Mike sets out to find the Tall Man, but this time he's joined by a little bit of a love interest in the name of Liz, played by Paula Irving, and they find a pretty cool gun. With a $3 million budget, and with Universal's behind it, Phantasm II takes Phantasm from its indie roots into a more studio-friendly environment. While a lot of people I know seem to love it, I have to admit I'm not that crazy about it. While it has its moments, I find it to be a bit of a step back from the original, trading mood, confusion, and a weird atmosphere for more bells and whistles. I also don't really like the recasting of Mike. If you've seen the Scream Factory release of this movie on Blu-ray, then you'll notice that this is the exact same disc. It has the Scream Factory logo on the side of it, and if memory serves me correctly, it packs every single extra that you actually got with the Scream Factory release. But, you know what, I'll take another Scream Factory disc just to have them all in the same set, because it would have stuck out like a sore thumb if they'd have released this without Part 2 in it. So, kudos to Scream Factory, kudos to Welgo USA, or whoever else had to work and make an agreement to get this one in the set. 1994's Phantasm III, The Lord of the Dead. Phantasm III picks up from where Part 2 left off and continues Mike and Reggie's hunt for the Tall Man. This time, however, the studio didn't really care, so A. Michael Baldwin returns to his rightful role as Mike. While still a Universal film technically, they decided to dock the budget quite a bit from the last film and only had interest in putting this movie straight to video. While a bit disheartening for all the people behind it at the time, the film did go on to be one of the most profitable VHS tapes of the year. Not only do we have the original cast back, but the mood and the tone seem to be mostly back as well. If this one does one thing right, it would certainly be some of the effects, as some of those look pretty great, pretty gnarly, and are pretty gross. You also get a pretty awesome performance from both Reggie and Angus Scrimm as the Tall Man. Added into the mix this time is the character of Rocky, played by Gloria Lynn Henry. She plays a semi-love interest for Reggie. Well, he tries to make her a love interest, but she's really not having none of it through most of the film. It also stars Kevin Connors as Tim, who adds a bit of a horror, Home Alone atmosphere to the whole thing. It's kind of odd, it's kind of weird, but it still kind of works. Not everything for Phantasm III seems to work, as I was never a fan of the trio of bad guys that seemed to be a thorn in Reggie's side from almost the start of the film. While not everything for Phantasm III was perfect, you could perhaps say it was a step in the right direction. This is the first time we're getting Phantasm III Lord of the Dead on Blu-ray. I have to say the film looks pretty doggone good. If you can pause here, you'll be able to see that we get some pretty good extras. Every film in the set comes with its own making of. That's one thing that you won't find on the Arrow version. Even with Universal attached to it, the film does seem pretty indie in some points, but besides some grain here and there, the film looks pretty good in HD. 1998's Phantasm Oblivion. It's still continuing the plot from the last time we left off, but this time with the inclusion of timelines and dimensions, we seem to be following Mike and Reggie more as they try to figure out the origin of the Tall Man, as well as stop him. Made straight to video for a mere $650,000, Oblivion was initially not liked very much by the horror fans that saw it. I, on the other hand, seem to be quite fond of it. Without the help of someone like Universal, Phantasm IV takes things a bit back to the DIY roots that the original had. And with the use of dimensions and unused footage from the original Phantasm, the movie is high on mood and somewhat confusing plot. I think that might be why I like it. As is without Ravager ever being made, Oblivion brings the story back full circle with a very haunting ending, and it wraps up things in a more fitting way. If all Phantasm ever really was a kid's imagination running wild after the loss of his brother and family, then the somber tone of Oblivion and the final moments are a great way to end things. Phantasm IV Oblivion looks about as good or equal as the last Phantasm film does in the set. In the darkness you can get a bit of grain, but everything else looks pretty doggone good, especially up close shots. If you pause the video right now, you can see we get some pretty cool extras, including one of those making ofs I was talking about. Phantasm IV Oblivion, it might be a little bit of a downer for some folks, but I like it, and it's probably, next to the original, my favorite in the Phantasm franchise. Ah yeah, we've reached 2016's Phantasm Ravager, directed by David Hartman, co-wrote by the original director Don Coscarelli. This movie brings back all of the original cast, even the lady in lavender, and was originally presented as a way to wrap up the entire Phantasm story, with Reggie still looking for Mike. I just want to go ahead and say, I hate this film. Hate it, hate it, hate it, hate it. Do not like it, not even a little bit. The opening is cool, but things quickly take a downgrade from there. One thing that stands out is the fact that this film was shot digitally. The old films were shot on film, and while you can kind of understand maybe why they went the digital route, the DSLR look does not do the film any favors. It even makes it look cheap. Also, the cool gore and effects are replaced by CGI this time around. For any Phantasm fan, that is a huge bummer. The story moves from being about Mike and the Tall Man to being mostly about Reggie. It has a confusing plot of Reggie maybe having Alzheimer's in one world, while in another world he's still doing battle with the Tall Man and his minions. The story fits better when it's about Mike and the Tall Man. While Reggie is perhaps the most iconic character in the franchise next to the Tall Man, he does not do good as the main focus of the film. And the way this story is set up, it kind of kills all the mythology, fan theories, and lore of the original Phantasms. And I also can't get over the fact that despite all the original cast members being back, it kind of looks like somebody made a fan film and was just lucky enough to get the original cast to return. While it was supposed to be the end of the franchise for Phantasm, while it was supposed to wrap everything up, it's a clear case of at the end having way more questions than we have answers. And plus, without Angus Scrimm now alive to be in another Phantasm film, I really hate that this is our final trip into the world of Phantasm. And if we do end up going back into that world again, without Angus, it just won't be the same. If you own the Well-Go USA solo release of Phantasm Ravager, then you have the exact same copy that I have in my hand here from the box set. If you pause, you can see the extras we have here, and I must admit that even though it's a DSLR camera, the film does look good, it just doesn't look like a Phantasm film. Also, if you crack this one open, you'll also find an entire disc of bonus material, some of which you will not find on the Arrow set. Topping off the Well-Go USA box set of Phantasm is a pretty thick booklet, as well as a pretty big poster that features not only the box set art, but on the reverse side, it features the Phantasm remastered art that you saw on the 4K Blu-ray disc. If you have plans on picking up the Phantasm collection from Well-Go USA, I would get right on it. Word is that stores that carry the box set are only going to be carrying 2 copies each. After they're gone, I'm not sure if they'll be getting any more or not.